Rarely do you see a party self-destruct in such a spectacular fashion as UKIP have. UKIP were arguably the third biggest party in Britain at one point. Let's not forget, UKIP actually won the 2014 European parliamentary election, taking nearly 33% of the vote. 1 in 3 voters voted UKIP, and in total they took 4,376,635 votes. Now, I know that smaller parties often punch above their weight in European parliamentary elections, but UKIP continued this success at the general election in 2015, taking 3,881,099 votes. That placed them in third place in the total number of votes received of all the parties in the UK. The only parties to get more votes were the Conservatives, who won the election, and the Labour Party, who came second and formed the official opposition. And I know some people will point out that UKIP only won 1 seat in those elections, and that other parties who took far less votes, such as the Scottish National Party and the Liberal Democrats, gained more seats with far less votes. I mean, the Scottish National Party took 56 seats with just 1,454,436 votes. But that is the nature of the first-past-the-post parliamentary system. But to UKIP's credit, they actually managed to illustrate that this so-called democratic system isn't in fact at all democratic. As for their almost 4 million votes, they only won a single seat in Parliament, and at the time, this caused a decent amount of discussion and debate, even from the mainstream media, as to whether the current parliamentary system was even fit for purpose. And I'm sure that it red-pilled millions of normal people as to the failings of a two-party first-past-the-post system. If you want to hear more on this issue, please check out my video, Why Democracy Isn't Working. It's linked in the description below. So after these 2 stunning electoral performances, one that saw them actually win a major national election outright, and the other that saw a performance so impressive in terms of total number of votes, yet only saw them win a single seat, it actually caused establishment news outlets to start questioning the validity of the electoral system in Britain. No wonder UKIP had the establishment parties shaking in their boots, and that undoubtedly was the main reason as to why David Cameron and the Conservative government decided to call a referendum on Britain's membership of the EU. The establishment could see there was a growing threat to their power, a patriotic party that was rapidly gaining huge numbers of votes and even winning large national elections. In a desperate effort to steal UKIP's thunder, David Cameron announced the date of the referendum on the UK's membership of the EU as June the 23rd, 2016, a date that will go down in political history as one of the greatest upsets to establishment power that the Western world has ever seen. So before we go any further, we all have a lot to thank UKIP for. Without their electoral successes and without their constant pressure on the establishment, we would never have had a vote on Britain's membership of the EU, and we would never have achieved Brexit. So this isn't an attack on UKIP or the UKIP membership, but instead a discussion on how and why UKIP have collapsed so spectacularly. So how spectacular was the collapse of UKIP? Well, in 2017, Theresa May called a snap general election, and just 2 years after taking nearly 4 million votes in the previous general election, UKIP's vote dropped to just 594,068 votes. And they dropped from 3rd place in terms of overall number of votes to 5th place. And their vote was actually lower than the total number of votes they took in the 2005 general election. Essentially, they had slumped back over a decade in terms of political progress. But it isn't just votes that UKIP has been losing. They have also been hemorrhaging members. At their peak, UKIP had over 40,000 members, but Sky News reported on the 23rd of January 2018, in fact, the week this podcast was released, that UKIP's membership was down to just 24,000. So what are the two main reasons for the collapse of UKIP? Now at this point, I am going to say, I told you so, as this was the topic of my first ever podcast. It was called UKIP, a victim of their own success, and I released it way back in October 2016. The link is in the description below. The main thrust of what I said was that UKIP had lost their unique selling point. They were victims of their own success. By bringing about the referendum on Britain's membership of the EU and then winning that referendum, they had effectively brought about their own end, as they no longer had a reason for existing. After all, UKIP stands for the United Kingdom Independence Party, and once independence had been achieved, they had lost their largest policy. The one policy that everyone in UKIP actually agreed on. That policy, their opposition to the EU, was the glue that held that party together. So all of a sudden, UKIP was in an odd position, and they started lurching from scandal to scandal. Nigel Farage stepped down as leader, and Diane James was elected, and she lasted just 18 days. Nigel Farage was then forced to step back in as interim leader, and finally Paul Nuttall, Nigel's loyal deputy, was elected in his place. However, if all that wasn't embarrassing enough, during that period, it was widely reported by the press that Stephen Woolfe was knocked out in the European Parliament by Mike Hookham. At one point, Stephen Woolfe was a favourite to lead the party, but he resigned shortly after the alleged incident in the European Parliament. It was clear to see that the party was fast descending into a low-grade soap opera, with leaders flouncing, public name-callings, and even an alleged punch-up. But after this initial bout of instability, Paul Nuttall was meant to restore order. But whilst he seemed to quell the internal disputes, he presided over the party's cataclysmic electoral collapse. Again, I covered this in a video some time ago, back in March 2017 to be precise. Again, it's linked in the description below. I stated that UKIP needed to reorganise themselves around a new issue. Brexit had been and gone, and they couldn't trade off that forever. I said that UKIP needed to grasp the nettle on immigration. They needed to become the anti-immigration party and start talking about the threat of Islam. Sure, that would have caused them to lose some of their more liberal and pro-immigration members, but the vast majority of the party, around 80%, would have supported that new direction, and it would have given them a renewed purpose and direction. What's more, it would have given the public a reason to vote for them again. As with Britain voting for independence, UKIP no longer had a unique selling point. Sadly, Paul Nuttall tried to please everyone, and in trying to please everyone, he pleased no one. He refused to tackle either immigration or radical Islam, and even issued an embarrassing leaflet during the Stoke Central by-election that pandered to Muslim voters. There was also a number of other embarrassing gaffes and public humiliations associated with that election. Whilst Paul Nuttall seemed to be a nice guy, he also seemed prone to making claims that weren't true. I detailed these claims in my aforementioned video, but things went from bad to worse for Paul Nuttall, as he was the leader that presided over the party's disastrous 2017 general election bid. The election where their total number of votes dropped from 3,881,099 to just 594,068. And in the wake of that disaster, Paul did the only thing that he could. He quit as party leader, and Steve Crowther then stepped in as caretaker leader as UKIP entered another damaging leadership election. Now it's worth noting that although Henry Bolton won that election, and we're coming back to him shortly, Anne-Marie Waters was his main competition. Now I don't think myself and Anne-Marie Waters would agree on everything, but I have seen her speak, and she is very passionate, and she did have a clear direction direction for UKIP. She is anti-Islam, anti-immigration, and she wanted to tackle issues such as creeping Sharia law, the Islamification of our schools, and of course, the grooming scandal. Now, Anne-Marie Waters didn't win, and had she won, she would have surely taken UKIP in a new direction, one that would have undoubtedly alienated some long-time supporters and members. But at least there would have been a direction. At least UKIP would have been known for something. UKIP would again have had a unique selling point. And it's also worth noting that had she won, she would have been supported by the likes of Tommy Robinson and the counter-jihad movement, which would have fed the party with fresh blood. She didn't win though, and the leadership election was bruising for the party. Fewer members voted than ever before. In fact, the decline of UKIP can also be charted in the number of members that actually turn out to vote in their leadership elections. When Diane James was elected, 17,824 votes were cast in the leadership ballot. When Paul Nuttall was elected as leader, that figure fell to 15,370 votes. And by the time Henry Bolton was elected, the number of votes cast in the leadership ballot had fallen to 12,915. I took these figures from Robin Tilbrook's blog. He is a solicitor and the leader of the English Democrats, and I've placed a link to his blog in the description below and suggest that you all check it out. It's really good reading. But despite the numbers of UKIP members voting in these ballots falling so drastically, the levels of animosity rose with each election, culminating with several high-profile UKIP MEPs stating they wouldn't serve the party if Anne-Marie Waters won. And she didn't. Henry Bolton won. Now, I had never heard of Henry Bolton until he won the election, but looking him up on Wikipedia, you would find out that he served in the Royal Hussars from 1979 to 1990 in both the UK and Germany. After leaving the army, he joined the Territorial Army and was commissioned in 1992 into the Wessex Regiment. 2 years later, he was promoted to captain. Since leaving the regular army in 1990, he undertook security and policing roles. For 8 years, he was a police officer in the Thames Valley Police Force, during which time he was sent to hostile environments, including Afghanistan. He was awarded an OBE in the 2013 New Year's Honours for services to international security and stabilisation. Now, all that does sound impressive, but you mustn't forget, previously, before his time in UKIP, he was a member of the pro-immigration, pro-Islam Liberal Democrats, something that certainly wouldn't bode well for a man who wanted to lead a patriotic party which had many members who were anti-immigration. And as we all know, his brief tenure as leader has been marked not by success, but by scandal after scandal. And despite only being leader since September 2017, he is now already facing mounting calls to resign. And why is this? Well, he is a man that lacks moral fibre. Earlier this month, January 2018, it was widely reported that he had left his wife, who it was alleged was still breastfeeding their youngest child at the time. He then embarked on a relationship with Jo Marney, a fellow party member and model, nearly 30 years his junior. This would have been bad enough for UKIP, but shortly after their relationship was splashed all over the tabloid press, it was revealed that Jo Marney had sent a number of politically incorrect text messages in which she claimed that she wouldn't date black men as she found them ugly, that she disapproved of Meghan Markle's relationship with Prince Harry as she felt it would taint the royal bloodline, and finally it was claimed that she said that Islam was, in her words, a cancer. So what did Henry Bolton do? Did he defend the honour of his young girlfriend? Did he tell the press that private text messages that she had sent were none of their business? Did he tell the press that his private life was nothing to do with them? Oh no. Henry Bolton, being the spineless love rat that he is, thought only of himself, and dumped her live on BBC Breakfast Television. So now UKIP has a spineless love rat and coward as their leader. Not only was it reported that he deserted his wife, family, and newborn child, but when it became politically expedient for him to do so, he dumped his young lover on live TV. What a useless worm. On Sunday, the 21st of January 2018, UKIP's ruling National Executive Committee, the NEC, unanimously backed a vote of no confidence in Bolton. But despite this, he is still refusing to stand down, and at time of recording, he is clinging on to power by his fingernails. The party membership will now be forced to vote on whether he should stay or whether he should go, essentially giving the membership the chance to trigger another leadership election. And who knows how low the turnout would be for that, and how many more members UKIP would shed in another round of bitter infighting. But in the wake of Bolton clinging on to power, several high-profile members have already either quit or resigned their positions. UKIP MEP Jonathan Arnott has resigned from the party, Margot Parker resigned as deputy leader, John Bickley resigned as immigration spokesman, and William Dartworth resigned as the trade and industry spokesman. UKIP have not just collapsed electorally, but their membership has slumped, and they have gone through 6 leaders in 16 months. That would be disastrous for any party. But UKIP's problems aren't just political. Not only have UKIP lost political ground and shed huge numbers of voters due to their inability to grasp the nettle on immigration and reorganise themselves in the wake of Brexit, but they have also managed to turn their party into a degenerate soap opera. I originally predicted that UKIP would be destroyed by the middle of 2019, but at this rate, it will be much sooner. Let's just hope that from the ashes of UKIP will come a real nationalist party, one that isn't afraid to talk about issues like immigration and Islam, and one where the leaders stand for traditional family values. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help spread the message by liking and sharing it on social networks. If you want to hear more from me, please hit the subscribe button, as new videos are posted every week. You can also read my book, The Fall of Western Man. It's available as a free ebook and in both hardback and paperback, and all the links are in the description below. Finally, if you want to join in the discussion with me, feel free to add me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. Also, you can now follow me on Gab, Minds and BitChute as well. Everyone's welcome.